It's hard to imagine a movie that is more solidly of the 1990s than The Crow. But somehow Francis Ford Coppola pulled it off. Born in New Cross, London in 1958, Gary Leonard Oldman was the son of Leonard Bertram Oldman and his wife, Kathleen. Gary Oldman has said that his father, who worked as a welder, abandoned the family when Gary was only 7 years old. Young Gary Oldman was a musician, having learned to play piano, but after seeing Malcolm McDowell's performance in The Raging Moon, he abandoned his plans for a music career to become an actor. He took on work on assembly lines, selling shoes, and working as a slaughterer in an abattoir to support himself as he studied with the Young People's Theatre in Greenwich. At one point, he applied for the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, but he was rejected. The rejection advised him that he was perfectly free to try again the next year, but also suggested that he might want to consider a different career. He did not. Instead, he applied to Rose Bruford College in Sidcup's BA acting program and won a scholarship. He graduated from the program in 1979 and became the first graduate of his class to receive professional work, playing in Thark at York's Theatre Royal. To this day, Oldman credits his early success not to any particular talent for acting, but rather to a tireless work ethic that saw him constantly on the move to find more acting work. He would play at the Glasgow Citizens Theatre and also toured Europe and South America with the Citizens Theatre Company. He made his screen debut acting in Channel 4 Films' Remembrance, but acting in live theater kept him moving around constantly. In 1985, he joined the Royal Shakespeare Company. In 1986, he left the company and accepted a role in Alex Cox's Sid and Nancy. He had previously turned down the role twice because the punk movement had never really interested him, and, as he now says, he was a young actor who believed the live theater was superior work to film. However, the paycheck wound up being too good to turn down. A year later, he would play playwright Joe Orton in the film Prick Up Your Ears, for which he received a BAFTA nomination. The two roles grabbed the attention of American filmmakers and critics, with Roger Ebert praising Oldman for the vast range he had shown in just 2 roles. He would co-star with Tim Roth in the film adaptation of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, directed by the original playwright Tom Stoppard, which would garner him even more praise in the American media. In the early 90s, Oldman started to be recognized in the media as the leader of the Brit Pack, a group of young actors from the UK who had relocated to America and successfully launched Hollywood film careers. In 1997, Oldman made his directorial debut with Nil by Mouth, a semi-autobiographical film that would win the BAFTA for Best British Film and for Best Screenplay, and is listed by the British Academy of Film and Television Arts as one of the 100 best British films of the 20th century. Oldman also continues to play music and sing. In general, he works hard to keep his private life private, but he has been public about his prior struggles with alcoholism and his work to recover from it through Alcoholics Anonymous. He has been sober since 1995.
Perhaps you should grow a beard.
The story of 1992's Bram Stoker's Dracula begins with Winona Ryder. Ryder had been cast as Mary in Francis Ford Coppola's The Godfather Part 3, the fourth actor to be attached to the role. But at the last minute she had to drop out of the film due to nervous exhaustion. This caused significant production delays, and Ryder worried that Coppola might be angry with her. So she asked for a lunch to clear the air. While at the lunch, she gave him a copy of James V. Hart's screenplay and suggested that he read it. The script had attracted Ryder's attention because she saw the film as a love story set in an era of repressed sexuality. Coppola was delighted to give the script a chance because Dracula had been one of his favorite stories as a young man, and became fascinated by what he saw as a version of Dracula he classified as an erotic dream.
Hello, boys. Have a good night's rest. I missed you.
Coppola set out to realize his vision, but he was also concerned about his growing reputation as a director who always went over budget and over schedule thanks to Apocalypse Now and One from the Heart. So he prioritized and economized to bring the production in on time and under budget. The bulk of the budget was spent on costuming, because Coppola figured that would put all of the emphasis on the cast. And the production shot almost all of its scenes on sound stages rather than on location, both to reduce location costs and to avoid delays due to weather. Meanwhile, Coppola pushed his designers to bring him weird designs, asking them to look at and take inspiration from the paintings of Gustav Klimt, or to draw inspiration from their own nightmares. At one point, the traditional effects team that he had hired told Coppola that what he wanted on screen could not be achieved without using computer technology. Coppola reacted by firing the team and replacing them with his son Roman. Filming was apparently a nervous affair, especially for Winona Ryder. She feared for her safety during some scenes, and many in the cast and crew noticed that what had appeared to be a friendship with Gary Oldman disappeared overnight, with the two of them no longer getting along. Although Ryder today responds to questions about the circumstances merely by saying, Oldman is a friend of hers now. Coppola also describes Keanu Reeves as being nervous about how he would be perceived, and particularly unable to let go of the idea that his British accent had to be absolutely perfect. Ultimately, between on-set tensions and Coppola's demands for maximum effect on a minimum budget, you wind up with a movie that is a 1990s affair. It has that feel of the decade, with all the extremes of the imagery being very 90s extremes. Imagine a Pinterest board for a 90s goth-themed party, and it looks an awful lot like this movie.
Permit me to introduce myself. I am Prince Vlad of Shanghai.
Prince knows.
I am your servant.
Coppola's production interestingly seems to crib a lot from Dan Curtis's Dracula. In particular, the idea that Mina is Dracula's past love reincarnated, and the parts of the story that explicitly identify Dracula as being the same person as Vlad Tepes. But arguably, this film is the one that popularized those character beats so much that many adaptations now treat them as a standard part of the story, not the least of which is Dracula Untold, the most recent attempt to use Dracula to reboot the Universal monsters. While this Dracula has a very human backstory, however, a Christian knight who has turned his back on God after his wife leapt from a tower while he was in battle defending the church, he is one of the least human Draculas to grace the screen. And that's saying something when you figure that the set of Dracula adaptations includes 2 versions of Nosferatu. It's sold in large part by Oldman's performance. Oldman as an actor has always held forth in interviews that he feels there is a valid use for overacting. And in this role, he pushes Dracula so far that you start to see just how removed from ordinary human life this character is. He is not a man out of time. He is a man out of the world. He has detached himself from anything and everything that even remotely resembles basic humanity. All that is left is the hunger, the passion, and the dad jokes. Dear God, the dad jokes.
They say you are a man of good taste.
Somewhere along the way, someone should have given this Dracula a cigar and some bushy eyebrows to wiggle. The movie was completed 9 months before its release date, and in the ensuing days, it had plenty of opportunity to be screened for industry insiders. Those insiders said the movie was too violent, too sexual, and just plain too weird. They predicted disaster at the box office, predicting that the audience would reject the film completely, drawing comparisons to famous flop Bonfire of the Vanities by referring to it as Bonfire of the Vampires. Everyone involved braced for impact. Bram Stoker's Dracula opened on November 13, 1992. Reviews were largely positive, but audience response was out of this world. It debuted at number 1 with a November record of $30,521,679 on its opening weekend. It fell from the top spot quickly, but even with a fast fall-off, it grossed $82 million just between the United States and Canada. On a budget of $40 million, the movie would bring in a worldwide gross of just over $215 million, making it the 9th highest grossing film of the year. It won Academy Awards for Best Costume Design, Best Sound Effects Editing, and Best Makeup, and took home Saturn Awards for Best Horror Film, Best Director, Best Acting, Best Writing, and Best Costume. The R-rated movie, adapted from the original classic novel, received its own novelization by fantasy scribe Fred Saberhagen, as well as a 4-issue comic adaptation and a 100-card collectible set from Topps. In the movie, Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves appear in a scene where John and Mina Harker are married. The wedding that appears is a reshoot done at a Los Angeles Greek Orthodox church with an actual Romanian Orthodox minister presiding, which led Coppola and other members of the crew to speculate that they might have accidentally really married Ryder to Reeves. To this day, Reeves says he still receives text messages from Ryder that open with, "Hello, husband." So what do you think of Gary Oldman's take as Dracula? This is a very influential film still at this point in time, even if it does look very, very 1990s. Drop down into the comments and let me know, and while you're down there, make sure you hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and if you're hitting the subscribe button for the first time, maybe also hit that bell that tells you whenever there's a new video from the film Optimist. Also, you can make sure to hit the share button, because sharing is caring. Until next time, I am Glenn Williams, the film Optimist, reminding you to watch like it means something.
And I never drink wine.